that would come down.
It's in your wires?
No, but it's in the parking. He's like, it's, you know, if you're worried about it coming down on something, you gotta find out what you wanna fix, or what you want taken care of, what you don't want taken care of. There's things that I have to also know is, what's PSEG responsible for, the stuff on the wires?
Well, we took the PSCNG, they're done trimming,
They're done.
they're done.
Okay,
In this area.
that's just basically just vines,
Mhm.
really, that's growing on them. I mean, they're still there, so I don't know, some that they didn't cut, but anyway, like I said, I have the addresses where they all are, exactly.
Okay, so why
why
don't you send us a list, but get a price
Okay.
from him when you send
Okay,
the list.
like he
so
says,
we know.
it'll be a
Okay.
day, he says it's gonna be a day, maybe a day and a half tops, that's it, it's not a lot of work. There's not a lot of things we can
Well, I
do.
think we gotta do that sooner than later. so-
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that was that.
Okay, you wanna talk about the code stuff you're working on? I didn't bring my copy with me, but I sent you my comments.
I have. So I'm not gonna go with the docs? Is that something?
No, that's, item number 11.
So there's two things that we need to discuss, I feel. I mean, I sent out a draft of the open burning, and, because you got back to me. The issue on open burning is permitted. Joe was kind of against it. Frank said, nah, I don't know if I want to do that. My own feeling is I don't want to get involved in that, but we have two very distinct camps over here. You have people who want to outlaw burning altogether. We want people who say it's a part of the village of Poquott and the beach and whatever, and they want it, but then they get into the things with the neighbors and the smoke. So we have to have some way of reconciling those. So my thinking is, I wrote it that it was a permit. And that we could decide among ourselves, if we do say we want a permit, what does that mean? And maybe it might just be.
But that's only for open burning, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Fire pits.
Fire pit's not open burning.
Well, then, did you read? Because I differentiate, I have to read it, and then I first not go over that. To me, the open burning, according to the, I took most of this off of the village.
Town.
Brookhaven. So there's open burning, which is to say it's not inside the house. And then we seem to have developed a definition, which is nowhere in here, that an open, something that is an enclosed fire pit, which is to say a screen, is not open burning.
No, it's not.
Well, I can change that in here, but my understanding was that it was, and that that's what's contributing to most of the discord. That people want to have an outdoor fire. Most of the time, except for down on the beach, it's in an enclosed fire pit, occasional chimney. But that the smoke, or just the act of burning, has the neighbor complaining and calling the fire department and calling code and everything else. So if it's just a semantic, that I have to change how but that's the issue that I wanted to see if I could reconcile.
Okay.
And that, I think, when we had the hearing, was what was the point of contention. People wanted what they wanted, but there was not a whole lot of wiggle room to make a compromise. So my thinking was, if we had a permitting process, even if it was something as informal as notifying code, I'm gonna have a party, I'm gonna have a fire, that they would be aware of it and say okay, to the point that they can check on it, that if they get a call that there's a fire burning and they go and they check it, it's just in their fire pit, that it's not bothering anybody. These people have to get used to the idea that it's legal. On the other hand, if somebody says I can do whatever I want to do it because it's a party, and their smoke is bothering somebody, whether it's a neighbor, or if it's down on the beach or something like that, code can order them to put it out. But at least they would check on it, they were aware that there was a fire. So we're not saying that, a week ahead of time they would have to go to Joe and get some kind of a written document and have it posted on the side of the fire pit or something like that. But some kind of notification so that we could have some control and some way of intervening when we have these neighbor things going on. So that was my thinking, and as I said, this was just a draft. And I welcome any comments, and if it's a matter of changing the wording, I wrote it up that fire pit was covered. Now, I don't know how you
I
feel.
mean, I thought, just looking what the DEC, the New York State DEC says, they have a pretty fair discussion of what open burning is.
Right, so open burning is trash, okay, not contained.
And then they exclude all the other types
Well,
of
that's what I
burning
did.
that we want to do.
Open
Exactly.
burning, the definition for open burning, the burning of debris for the purpose of ridding a property of rubbish, garbage, and excess landscape.
And then it's the exceptions that we need to
Right,
itemize,
so,
that the New York State DEC
so what
already
we're
does.
saying, so what I said in section 2 is open burning is prohibited. And
Except,
then the exceptions
Right.
are,
Right,
and then we get into the fire pits.
okay.
right.
So
So
I can
that's the right
tweak
way to do
that
it.
to make clear that, you know, what I'm talking about when I say a fire pit, but I thought it was clear, but there's always room for edit.
Right, I think our codes with the use of the word fires, it's, you know, then I think maybe if we updated the code to be more nuanced, to use the language that Brookhaven uses.
Right.
Or the DEC uses, then maybe this is a
Well, I
lesser issue.
thought I did, but I'll reread it, I mean, oftentimes.
You took on from Brookhaven and looked
Yeah,
good.
yeah, no, I think it's great.
But I wanted to also have it so that the issues, which was smoke
Mhm.
and weather conditions, that was another thing, when it gets windy. So people are saying, look, I have an ordinary fire, it's in a fire pit, what's the problem? But in the meantime, there's this wind that's blowing it right into the neighbor next door. Or in that case I mentioned where every time the one neighbor made noise, the other neighbor made a fire.
I mean, permit or otherwise, what's the course of action
Even if you ever
of
permit,
code?
like what's like.
Permit or not, I don't feel
Because
like
code would
anything
know about it, and
changes.
code would come down there and be able to.
Well, the permit would only be for open burning. That's garbage, that's, right, you're not talking about.
No, I
I'm
think
not
he's
talking about
talking,
that, I'm talking about using
are you
appropriate
talking about
fuel.
permitting, if I'm having a fire pit fire in my backyard,
Yeah.
because it's a birthday party?
Yeah.
Do I have to tell code about that?
I think so. If, that would reconcile the
think so.
problems with the
Yeah, I
neighbor,
think
but it
that
would be
that's-
burdensome.
That would be
That's the trade-off.
Mhm.
So I just don't know, the problem is, we had an example of it, where a neighbor has a graduation party, daughter has a fire pit. The immediate neighbor to that complains, repeatedly called the fire department. And they responded, they had to respond.
Right.
And they responded 3 times, but they said, we don't want to tell you how many times they called. We got the call. And our code guys came, and we have to be able to avoid that stuff. Depending on where you stand on this issue of fire pits, the person who had the fire did nothing wrong, and by all accounts, the smoke wasn't going into the neighbor's house, but it was a fire pit from adjoining property.
Depending on location too, I mean, you could have places up there, you know, 1 acre plot, I mean, my backyard, I could literally
Right,
just
a lot of it has.
have let my neighbors, you know,
Yes.
so I mean, there's also common courtesy where you gotta,
That's,
it all depends on your relation with your neighbor too, I mean,
That's
it's a lot.
That's what it's about.
It was, you know, there's something else where, you know, I mean, if there's a stipulation, if you're gonna have a fire, I mean, is what the code enforcement saying is, well, you know, you're allowed to have a fire, we're allowed to, so that's it. So, dry wood and wet wood is 2 totally different things, it's gonna smoke in the beginning, if you have dry wood, it's gonna be fine, it's not gonna be a problem, if you use wet wood, it's gonna sit there.
Well,
and
the
it's
thing
gonna
it
be-
is, it has been a
Yeah,
problem.
because it hasn't been that.
That's the issue. I wanted to kind of codify it here because
Right.
it has been a problem for people who are against fires. Any fire is a problem.
Yeah, right.
And yet we have people, many people in the village who say, come on, I mean, it's a part of summertime, especially in Poquott. We should be able to do that, so the trick is to find a middle ground.
Yeah.
So I even put in here, which is unusual for a code, other items to consider, and I said neighbors. Maintain an awareness of smoke and noise conditions and be considerate of your neighbors. Smoke from any fire will travel horizontally and can enter neighbors' homes through open windows or into their yard, where they too may be enjoying their time outside. So that allows us to be able to, I mean, it's not a good thing for code, because you get drawn into the middle of it, but somebody has to be able to go like this and say, now, here's how this has to be resolved.
Right, because as much as we want common courtesy, sadly.
Yeah, well, you would think so, but that
It always-
hasn't
isn't
worked
always
at this
there.
point. So it's really a difficult thing. I tried to kind of go middle ground and basically say if we have an awareness, the village, I said we, has an awareness that so-and-so can have a fire, that, number one, the person who's going to do it is kind of saying, I'm gonna have a fire, so presumably they understand that there's some rules attached to this. And number two, code on the other side, bypassing the village hall altogether, that's what I'm hoping they can do. They have enough to do, just answering FOIL requests. But the amount of time that they have to do this is just non-existent. So if we just have that code is going to be aware and be able to check on it, check on smoke conditions, maybe even say, you know, the wind conditions are such as that we don't think it's a good idea to do it. Something like that. So
What if a person has a fire and doesn't call code?
Right. I could see that happening. It happens all the time.
You know, absolutely. I don't know.
well, that's, okay, that's the next thing to put in there.
I mean,
It's a
I
fact.
almost feel like we're overthinking it.
Yeah, I think it should
In
be very
terms
well,
of
I agree with
permitting.
him, I don't think we should have a permit.
Well, most
It
of
should
the
just
time,
be-
code responds, and they're basically trying to comment on it out and just, you know, you're not looking to give people summonses and things like that. But at least we have somebody on. I mean, another issue would be, and in fact it was raised, was that what happens when there's something like that and code isn't on?
Right.
We don't have 24/7 coverage, so,
And when the fire department gets called, just like they didn't do it.
yeah. Well, but at least we have something in the books. So I think that the thing that we have to do is to kind of, as everybody will have to do, is to kind of walk through in their minds about how this would play out, and whether or not we can live on it in it. But if it's in the code, and we have somebody who
Should be
basically
in the
goes like
welcome
this
packet.
to everybody, to their neighbors, code has the ability to cite someone. At least it's on the books. You know, you always hope that it never comes to that, and that we can work it out, and at least we have some guidelines.
I mean, maybe the smoke, if someone's smoke is egregious and it's blowing to someone's house in a way that code sees it, maybe it goes under nuisance. Maybe there's a better way to legislate it.
Yeah, well, we
Not
have
so that-
nuisance, we have
Right,
nuisance,
so you put it under another avenue, so it's not the fire that's the issue, it's your irresponsibility in blowing your neighbor out. And maybe that's where you can come up with a better sort of levy against the person.
Well, implicit in that would be, and this is why I wanted to write everything down and then edit it
Right.
around. Implicit in what you're saying is that we're saying fires are allowed. If we did nothing, or it was suggested, just say that open burning is defined as a burning trash without a
No,
cover,
you're right.
and that's illegal, leave everything else unsaid. That would be very easy, because that is basically in all the code.
Right.
But our issue has been that people do it in a way that we think is okay. It's in terms of fire prevention, you know, all the things, hose, everything is done. But we still have these neighbor things going on. Code gets dragged into it, the fire department gets dragged into it, the police will call it, in fact. So.
I'm not sure the code will stop a neighbor from reporting another neighbor if they don't get along.
No, I mean, listen, if the laws on the books did that, we wouldn't need police forces.
Mhm.
But people ignore that. But at least we have something that we can, it's guidelines, number one. Number two, it gives our guys in code a chance to say, look, this is what you have to do.
I think it's a good start, the first draft was good, so do we want to keep working on it and getting it more,
Yeah, I think.
Define.
Is this gone out?
Continue to
Is this gone out, or is this just?
just from us right now, because we haven't sent any
well-
public hearing.
Unless you have some immediate things, and maybe that definition needs to be tweaked.
Mhm.
But what I'd like to do is, maybe we can have another hearing. That first hearing was open discussion, we didn't have anything to do. So, and then have a hearing where people can read it in advance, weigh in on it, see how that might play out in their minds as far as their neighbors or whatever, and then go from there. But my thinking is we need to have something on the books, and then we can start with this and then kind of work back a little bit if you feel it's just too onerous. I think right off the bat, we need to say that we're not talking about permitting that goes to the village hall.
Right.
It's just not doable.
Okay, so do we want to take a look at it one more time, make some more changes, and then,
Well, do you want me to, with the definitions, is that something that I need to do, or, Chris, did you feel that there was?
No, I thought the definitions, as long as, they seem fine, as long as they're telling us that open burning
is open burning?
is not allowed
Not allowed,
except
except-
in these instances.
And then,
Itemizing that you can't burn, leaves, you
Recreational
can't
fire.
burn chemically treated wood.
Right,
You know,
right.
all the painted, you can't do all these things. As
So
long as that's
definition
itemized,
of a
we're good.
recreational fire, and I said under campfire, see recreational fire. Recreational fire, small outdoor fire of burning materials in bold, other than rubbish, for the purpose of pleasure, cooking, warmth, or similar purposes. And then the beginning is open burning is prohibited. Open burning is burning of debris. Open burning is prohibited. Exceptions. Exceptions for recreational fires will be allowed with prior permit issued by the village.
I think we should take out the permit issue.
So how about notification to the code or something like that? So you want to just take it off the?
I think we should just
Be
take it
yes
off.
or no, yeah, I mean, it's really yes or no, yes we're allowed that far, and no, we're not that far. I mean, if you say yeah.
I think what we have to put in
Well,
there
that's
is
the problem,
that it's in a
right,
container.
I get it, yeah.
The hearing that we had, it was kind of evenly split. Some people wanted it under certain conditions, other people did not want it under any conditions. Some people wanted it private but not public. Some people wanted it public but not private, and the houses were not on top of each
Right.
other, because, as you were just saying, in fact, if you are on certain properties, if you're gonna have a very legal campfire in your backyard, the people around you are gonna be affected by it, because it's just not enough land. It's just the nature of things. And everybody said they didn't
Don't
want
bite
to
them
make it according to, you'd be discriminating against some people or others, because, oh, you have more property, so you can do it, and I can't do it.
Right.
So you don't want to get to go there. So that's where you get back to the courtesy thing, and I just wanted to put that in writing, so.
I say we should look at it one more time, make more comments, come up with another revision, and then go from there.
You want me to try to do a draft without permits?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, let me give that some thought. I'd like to-
And then maybe
Okay.
just include like the DEC gives you the list of things you shouldn't burn.
Right.
And that should be listed there.
And Town of Brookhaven does too.
Just so it's specific, not just rubbish, because that's debated,
Mhm.
so.
Some people's rubbish, some people's treasures.
There you go.
Did you have a chance to look at code 15-183 too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the issue with 50 is the notification.
Okay.
That's it. Code 50 is unsafe buildings,
Okay.
and it has everything in there. That's really not the issue.
Oh, this
The
is the
issue-
one that Frank was talking about?
Right.
Okay.
Right, this came
That was
up
on the list.
when we were discussing properties that were cited, and I mentioned the privacy issue, and Frank said, well, because it's in the code, we have to do it that way. So the issue is one of tweaking this in terms of walking through how we would handle a citation. Because I personally feel that the board should not be involved in running, if somebody has a citation for something, code cites them for something, building inspector, gets whatever it is, and then it's here, the address, it shouldn't really be to that point.
I agree.
I think it should be, though, that if we're going to walk down the road towards some kind of legal resolution, even the threat of a legal resolution, we need to vote on that, and I'll agree that we're gonna do that. If we do that, then at an open meeting, how do we do that? And what I thought was that maybe we get notifications, and then at our meeting, we discuss it as case number 1, something like that. Where we have it here, we're not saying, we're addressing the problem, and deciding whether or not we want to move forward with it. But in terms of the people's privacy, we're not blasting it all over the village that.
But Joe, right now, the code, you have to spell out the address and what the issue is,
Yeah.
right? So should we just should we change that code to?
I don't think the problem is we're hamstringing the code, public safety. And we're making, there's things that are significant health and safety risks that have been allowed, that have existed in some cases for years, and because of this process, and just, to have an open debate over something that they should just, is literally an emergency, they should just be able to go over and, I think it's
that's in
wrong,
it.
they should just be able to go and write tickets.
I'm pretty sure we said, and I have to reread it, but in the code that in cases of emergency, they can act on it immediately.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying? I think that's already in there. But I'll check it.
Well,
But that's not really what we were talking about with Frank. What we were talking about is, we had a list of a couple of different properties, and they were identified by address, and the address was known.
But some of them were safety issues. And we had to wait till the meeting for him to go out there. So I think, can we remove it from the code, that part?
Well, I would rather it says safety rather than emergency. That's.
Yeah, no, I have no
but
problem with that. But what I'm talking about is identifying the address. If
It's a
we have
public,
the address, we know what we're talking about, we circulate the pictures, but what we're not doing is mentioning the person or the address. You know, we have to do it in a public meeting, that's part of what.
It's part of the code that says it has to go to the board of trustees and they have to approve that this is
So
a
we would
nuisance
have
or
it-
this is
not
unsafe.
but,
Okay.
I think that if it's not, well, by definition, it's unsafe, that's the problem, if it gets in this section, so. Yeah, I just, I just haven't got issue with, if something's unsafe, we should just be able to act on it. I don't think it should go through a couple months of debate at the Board of Trustees level.
So should we change the code so that it can be handled immediately instead of having
Yes.
to wait for a meeting? Okay.
That's my recommendation.
Would you want us to vote if this is going down some kind of legal redress?
Yeah, so this is really for a different type, when you have sections like, chapters like this, it's really for a different scenario. It's where the public safety should be able to go and write a ticket for something that's a violation. That this is for something that, it might be a violation, but the village might want to act on it. So in other words, the village might want to go and remedy the situation. When you have a chapter like this, it's really for that. So, but the public safety can get the person into court, or the homeowner into court, and if there's a violation, and let the violation be adjudicated. But this provision is really for where the village is going to take civil action in the Supreme Court, or wants to otherwise give the person, it doesn't have to be in the Supreme Court, otherwise give the person notice that we believe that there's an unsafe condition on your property that needs to be remedied, and if you don't take care of it by a certain date, the village is going to come in and you have the potential of the village coming in and remedying it at your cost. You know, and that should be an open debate. That should be subject to public hearing.
Okay.
That's what I said at the outset. I don't think that anything in this section, unsafe buildings, in terms of the process, it should be changed. The code has, especially now with the maintenance of property law, we don't have to say who they are. Okay, that can go through that process. What I'm talking about is when it gets to the point that the village is going to do something. We represent the village. We would have to vote on it. If we vote on it, it's at an open meeting. If it's at an open meeting and we did what we did the last time, I just feel it's not neighborly, number one, but it's just an invasion of somebody's property that they're identified as having this thing that's been going on, and now we're gonna take them to court.
But what you're saying is change the code so that code enforcement can act on it. When it becomes a situation that we are going to the next level, then the board has to discuss it, correct?
Yes, because
okay.
When we discuss it, we just could say, we have the stuff in front of us, but we can say, okay, now case number 1, and then we can go to case number 2. It's clearly marked on there, without saying so-and-so. We might as well broadcast everybody's name, which I just, if you want to keep that, I just don't think it's nice.
That's like having that would be like having the ZBA give out variances without giving the person's name. I mean, it's the point of it, it's in public, otherwise you would do it in an executive session. How would anybody in the public know what property you're talking about? And as a sidebar of this, I mean, we have tickets that are getting dismissed in court because we don't, because of the way the chapter reads now, we have tickets, for serious situations that are getting dismissed in court, because public safety is doing their job in issuing tickets on violations, and the way the code is written now, even though the judge, I think the judge acknowledges that there's probably a violation, but he said that his hands are tied because it hasn't gone before the board yet. I mean, we have nights where almost every ticket got dismissed because.
Are you saying that it's really actually a requirement that they be publicly identified? Is that part of it?
I believe it is, yeah.
Oh, okay, then that's that. I feel like that we.
But you're saying if it's an unsafe condition, then code can go into it without.
If it's a violation.
Right.
So nothing needs to be done there, because I
Well,
think
something
when
does
you-
need to be done, because what's gonna happen is if there is a, you know, I can't think of, there's no steps on the deck, and someone's gonna fall off and code writes a violation and gets to court, they're gonna say, well, you didn't put it before the board, so now I'm dismissing it. Even though the person could still fall off and get
Well,
hurt.
they can't write it under chapter 50, that's the point. We can't, right now, we can't write violations under 50. It's difficult to write, you can't write a violation under chapter 50
Without the
unless it
board
comes
approval.
before the board.
Right.
Right, that's the problem.
So
So
that's what we have to look at.
we've
changing.
typically used it, but
Okay, I didn't even, that's a whole other thing.
Okay, so that's what we have to change, we
All
have
right,
to
and
change
we're
that.
agreeing then that if it gets to the point that it's before the board, that we're just gonna continue to give the address of the property and the picture. That's, okay.
Mhm. But we hope it doesn't get to that point, especially if we change this so that, you know, we can.
because the neighbors, you know, first off, the person should get notice, but then the neighbors should come and or persons affected. They may say, you know, leave the person alone. They may say, this is a really bad situation. They may say, you know, everybody's entitled to.
Usually it goes the other way, that the neighbors start it,
Mhm.
and they already know about it, and that's how we get involved.
Right, so we'll keep working on that, but that's basically what we have to do, so.
All right, so the issue is not privacy, it's having safety be able to move forward.
Right, without our approval unless, you know, gets to the next level, so. And I know you looked at code 183, so that, you know, it's, so,
Right, now, 183, did I circulate that,
yes.
building permits?
Well, maybe you just showed me, I don't remember.
No, we did that.
No, you didn't get that one, okay.
Well, Frank suggested to me, because we've been talking about building permits, I've been trying to make this clear about when a building permit is needed. And I want to specify when it's not needed, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So the suggestion that he had was to take building permits out of zoning and have it as its own chapter. And I thought that was a great idea, because if you look up, go online and you want to find out what the village requires for a permit, and what it doesn't require for a permit, it has its own chapter, building permits, and it's very clear, and then you go in there, and then I also wanted to specifically enumerate, these are the things that you need a building permit for. And these are the things that you specifically don't need a building permit for. And that should go hand in hand with our desire to have people take care of the property. So that we're not going to say that people should have a building permit to go put on new siding and shutters and things, because that's a good thing. So the problem has been that people say that's what they're gonna do, and then they enlarge windows, they do major things. That
That's the
doesn't-
second story on, yeah.
Okay, but what I said in here was that things like that specify, if you're going to put in replacement windows, but you're gonna open the size of the window, put in a larger window, that means you're affecting framing.
Right.
Framing is structural, it has to have a building permit. Okay. So, if you have, you know, they did away for years, you weren't, they did away a couple of years ago with replacement in kind. That used to be a big thing.
Right.
So that if you had one of the old bungalows with a back porch, and it was lightly framed and it collapsed, you could redo it, because you were just putting it back as it was. That's no longer the case. So now, if somebody were to go and replace something like that, you need a building permit because it's structural. It holds something up. If you're going to have steps, it's structural, it supports something, it's got to be inspected, you need a permit. So all of those things would be enumerated in this chapter. There's another, Frank was here before you got here, John, and he said he's not sure that he wants everything so enumerated, because suppose we forgot something. And I said, well, at some point we'll find that out and then we'll correct it. You know, but I think that we have all the major things.
There's probably language you can put in there that covers unforeseen items
Mhm.
Well, I
on
said,
either side of that equation.
I'm not tweak anything,
Yeah.
but I said if it's structural, if it has to do with electric or plumbing, it's to say you need to have it inspected. Right. So if you're, a lot of people would put in a kitchen and not,
Yeah.
or a bathroom and say
Excuse
that,
me, could you not talk out there? It's very distracting.
not put in new living space or something like that, so why should I have a building permit? All I'm doing is putting in a nicer toilet and a vanity. But if there's plumbing, there's an outlet, and you wanna make sure it's a ground floor outlet, so it needs to be inspected. So we're very specifically saying what is required, what you don't need, and it's accessible on the website. It's right there in our code under permits. So this was my first attempt at it, and basically, I added a couple of the specific things that were on the building permit form and whatever, but the concept is taking what we already had, making it specific as far as that list. There's a list of about a dozen things like that. I added a few things, and I'm gonna test Mike before I put it in there. So, that's where we are with this. So, I thought,
Why don't you send it out to
I'll
everyone?
send it out to
Okay.
everybody, and, take a look at it.
Did you have a chance to work on the other code? Well, it's box though, so beaches.
Right, so I'm still looking at what other villages are doing with their beach code. A lot of it falls under, they have beach code because they're worried about things like people swimming. So their beach code generally falls on staffing of lifeguards, all the different things that go with that. I feel like our beaches, because they're non-swimming beaches, fall more naturally under just an extension of parks code.
They do,
And-
right? We don't have it would be in the parks, correct?
Yes, beaches.
So have them under there, and then any issues regarding debris left on beach, maybe that's what I'm gonna look at, how we can add that to cover that. I have to look and see how to add that, so that we don't have people leaving.
So are you thinking of adding a section to the parks?
Yeah.
one? And that will be, okay,
Yeah.
underneath that.
Yeah, right beneath parks.
Okay. Hey, whatever rough draft that you get, you can send out to everyone to
Great.
start looking at, okay?
Right, because we technically don't have beaches.
Beaches.
You know,
So it has to be a
I forgot why I did it, and when it was, but it was a while ago. I looked up the definition of beach. And I noticed, they say swimming beaches.
Where did you look it up, in the dictionary?
In
or-
the dictionary. That doesn't work. And I wanted to laugh, but it's.
No, I'm
I said,
not laughing, you should preface it, just say you just looked up the definition.
Okay, I'm sorry.
In order to help you, I need to know where you looked it up.
Anyway, apparently the technical definition of a beach is where the water meets the land. So it has no reference to swimming. So that's where that term swimming beach, it's not a swimming
I
beach.
mean, and that's what every town code has that has a swimming
So,
beach.
I didn't know
That's all they're focused on.
Yeah.
They're focused on
That's
how
all,
many
that's
people
what
can
I
stay there, alcoholic beverages, everything
Yeah.
in relation to it being
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go into that kind of.
So it's the beach part of our park system.
It is. It's all-
You might wanna look at Belterres,
Yeah.
because they can't swim on the south.
On the
south
sound side, on the
yeah.
harbor side,
Mhm.
yeah.
So,
But they can, but they do have,